Ori and the Blind Forest was released in 2015 on the Xbox One. This Microsoft Studios published game has since received a definitive edition and was even ported to the Nintendo Switch. Its developer, Moon Studios, released their follow-up to the sleeper hit in 2020, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I previously uploaded a first impressions video on this channel. If you want to watch that first, the card is in the upper right. To summarize, my first impressions were positive and I was looking forward to more great content. But now we have a new question. Did Ori and the Will of the Wisps actually deliver on all my expectations? My name is Phil Phantastic from the Game Pack. Join me as we traverse the forest land of Nguyen and review Ori and the Will of the Wisps. In this franchise, you play as the titular character Ori, a spirit of the forest who is born of the life tree in the forest of Nibel. In the previous quest, her mission was to restore the life force and light to her home forest. I will say, as amazing as Ori and the Blind Forest is, and that I absolutely recommend you play it first, you 100% do not need to in order to enjoy the Will of the Wisps. I personally think that since ideas from that game were built upon in this sequel, it makes sense to play them in release order, but you don't need to. I could go on about the visuals of this game, and I did in my first impressions video. They are amazing, and you're seeing them right now. The art direction is flawless, and the team at Moon Studios is full of some real talent. The different regions of Nguyen are very diverse and not just repeated from the previous game with different layouts. The world is much harsher. Some new areas include a frozen mountain, deep bodies of water, and a treacherous desert. This game is much darker, both thematically and visually, than its predecessor. There is a level where you are literally consumed by darkness if you inhabit it for too long. Emotional beats hit way harder, and there were times where I put the controller down to really absorb what had happened. These moments really push the player to strive on, even when the challenges seem monumental and the world seems dauntingly large. Characters with fun personality quirks fill this large world and really turned this solo quest to save the forest into a choreographed effort by the residents helping Ori along her journey. As predicted, the fully orchestrated soundtrack stayed consistently amazing from start to finish. The soundtrack is one of the shining stars of the game. It really hammered the sentimental moments home. Before I get into the gameplay, there is something that needs to be addressed. I completed this game during launch week. I was even at the launch event where the developers didn't end up appearing because they were putting the final touches on the game. After completing the game, I realized why the developers did not go to that launch event. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is riddled with sound, graphical, and performance bugs. I even played this game on both my Xbox One X and my PC to see if my hardware was causing the issues. I'm sad to report I had horrific sound issues in addition to the random buzzing that everyone has been reporting. I experienced parts of the environment and textures flashing and flailing around rapidly. I experienced slowdown when dashing and when moving around the menus. The game even crashed on me twice. It is my hope that these issues will get patched, but it broke my immersion multiple times and really did the game a disservice. The Metroidvania formula is back in full force. If you like that style of gameplay, then you will truly enjoy how this game is laid out. There is plenty to explore and so many secrets to uncover. One great feature of this game is the addition of quests. It gives direction to the player even when they don't want to go straight for the main story. This game has optional side quests that I found myself wanting to complete before finding out how the story ended. I would sometimes get to the end of a path and I was sure I had found a secret, only to find out that it was a dead end. This was when another great feature was super useful: warping. You can teleport to any previously discovered warp location no matter where you are, unless you are falling or swimming. Keep those feet firmly on the ground and you are transported. Ori has a new arsenal this time around. Starting out with a sword, eventually she has an entire weapon wheel of abilities to choose from, depending on either your preference or the structure of the obstacle ahead. I enjoyed swapping abilities in and out to figure out what combination would be best. These abilities can be found along the journey or purchased and upgraded at an NPC with Spirit Light. Spirit Light is basically currency or experience that the player can allocate however they choose. It can be found hidden throughout Nguyen or in small quantities by defeating enemies. In addition to swapping out abilities at will, the player can also swap out shards to better complement the situation. Shards can be found and purchased throughout Ori's quest. These augment Ori's abilities in a number of ways, for example, giving an extra life point, being able to stick to walls, or adding a triple jump. There were even shards that allow the players to take more damage in order to deal more damage to foes. I loved how customizable this upgrade system was. It did remind me of Hollow Knight though, however, so I wonder if that's where they got their inspiration. Another big change from The Blind Forest was the addition of boss fights. Previously, the climax to an area would be a speedrunning style escape sequence. Although there are only a few bosses, it made for a great change of pace in the game that adds more emphasis on combat and not just traversal. I loved the story, the characters, the visuals, the soundtrack, the level design, the revised progression system, and the boss fights. Everything about Ori and the Will of the Wisps screams perfect game. However, I need to readdress the buzzing, lagging, and glitching elephant in the room. In its current state, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is not perfect. It was released before it was ready, and it's obvious. As my issues with the game were confirmed by other content creators and by the developers themselves. Every fiber of my being wants to rate this game a 10, but the fact that my immersion was broken so many times, I simply cannot. Now, it did not ruin my experience by any means. For the most part, I experienced the game without interruption and with sheer excitement as I rode the emotional roller coaster Moon Studios had created. We here at the Game Pack give Ori and the Will of the Wisps a 9 out of 10. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to the Game Pack for more news, reviews, and other gaming content. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.